Hey guys, I've decided to come up here because it seems like I'm not really capable of dealing with my own family. It's been quite a mess and I could really use some advice. I've never really understood why my stepsister Claire was so jealous of me. From the day our parents married when we were both 16, it was like we were thrown into a blender, forced to mix our lives together. I thought maybe her jealousy was just teenage angst, a phase that would eventually pass, but it didn't. Instead, it became a persistent issue. Growing up, we had the typical sibling squabble. But Claire's snide remarks and these backhanded compliments took things to a whole nother level. When I started dating my boyfriend, now husband, Jason, the jealousy became a whole lot worse. She would go off making comments like, "You really lucked out with him, didn't you?" I mean, who would have thought that you can land someone in finance? Claire's disdain for my career as a designer had always been so obvious. She'd often say things like, "You should quit your job. Your husband makes much more money than you, and you can't even comprehend, let alone manage it." I would bite my tongue trying to keep the peace. After all, she was family and our parents expected us to get along. We didn't have to see each other very often. Anyways, I went to a university in another state, and she stayed with our parents for a while before moving out. She's now a marketer at a nightclub. Whenever I express my concern for her occupation, which understandably exposes her to a lot of social evil, she accused me of being jealous of her. She said I wasted her dad's money to go to university just to get a lame job, while she didn't need college and still managed to make a living off her talent. I guess I should have been more careful with her. She's never treated me like her family, but it was more important to me to keep the peace and make sure that my mom was happy. I did not want to stand up for myself. In fact, I'll admit that I have been pretty much a people pleaser throughout my whole life. It's something that I'm working on myself, and I guess my passive nature sort of allowed Claire to say whatever she wanted to say. Things were problematic, but nothing would have prepared me for what would happen on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Fast forward to the wedding day. It was a beautiful morning and everything seemed perfect. It was in an intimate wedding, so it felt really special, and my friends and family gathered, all smiles and congratulations. See, my mother fussed over every single detail, ensuring everything was perfect. Then she realized that Claire was late. See, now Claire is a bridesmaid. You would think that bridesmaids would understand how important it is to show up earlier than everybody on the wedding, but apparently my stepsister did not. What made this even more annoying to me was that she originally asked to be my maid of honor. Of course I said no. She seemed upset about it though, but she still offered to help me with organization and stuff like that. She even asked to accompany my husband to the venue instead of me. On the day that I was having food poisoning, I found it a little bit odd that she was so affectionate and helpful to me completely out of the blue, but I guess I appreciate it all the same. I made her one of my bridesmaids. It was a nice thing to do for my parents too. Anyways, Claire eventually showed up at the wedding. She arrived 40 minutes late, and here's where it gets really, really messy. All the bridesmaids have different colors for their dresses, but they were all pastel, and my maid of honor was the only person with a slightly more noticeable shade of pink. And Claire's dress was supposed to be light purple, but she showed up in a red dress with a neckline that plunged halfway down her chest. Like, seriously? How could she wear that to my wedding, knowing well enough it means that you have slept with the groom? Ugh, how far could she go to humiliate me? The whispers and sideways glances from the guest were hard to ignore. As if the dress wasn't enough, she had to add insult to injury. She half-heartedly apologized to everyone and explained that she spilled drinks on her dress, so she had to buy a random one on her way here. Then she asked my maid of honor to grab her a drink because she was stressed out. My bridal party, was literally stunned. They'd always known we didn't get along, but I guess we didn't know it was this bad. I bit my tongue, not wanting to cause a scene. Despite Claire's attempts to undermine the occasion, I focused on the positives. My husband and I exchanged our vows, and for a moment I thought I could finally breathe easy. The ceremony was beautiful, and the reception was full of laughter and joy. After the wedding, I should have been on cloud 9. Instead, something just felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was this nagging feeling in the back of my mind. I was wondering if the red dress meant anything, and I was afraid to face the truth. But the unsettling feeling was just there. It took me a little time to figure out why I was feeling that way. Yesterday, my husband and I decided to deep clean the house as a way of celebrating the start of our marriage. We've been living together for a short while, so I was just coming up with ways to make things special for us. My husband wasn't very excited. He half-heartedly helped me for 2 hours, and then he said that he wanted to take a nap. So he did, and I was left with the mess that was our 2-story house alone. I tried to stay positive and continue to finish what we started, and what happened next really changed everything for me. I was cleaning out my husband's car when I found it. An extra phone, hidden right there in the glove compartment. It was hidden inside a box under a bunch of other crap that my husband might have put there just to cover it up. My heart dropped. I opened the phone and it had a 4-digit password. So I put in our wedding day first because the other day I asked him to change his password to celebrate it with me. It was incorrect. Then I put in my birthday, which was his password before the wedding, still incorrect. His birthday, which was my password before the wedding, also incorrect. I had 2 chances left before the phone locked up, and then a horrible hunch just came to me. I put in my sister's birthday, and it was correct. I guess something in my gut always knew that she was up to something, but I didn't want to believe it. I went through the phone, and what I found shattered my world. It was full of messages between my husband and Claire. They were having an affair. He's been telling Claire that he only married me for my fertility. Claire had told the family years ago that she was infertile. And here she was, conspiring with my husband to use me as a baby factory. They even had a plan to divorce me as soon as I had a child and to use false accusations of abuse to win custody. I felt sick to my stomach. My head was literally spinning, and I was sitting there frozen, and the phone heavy in my hand as the world around blurred. It was like everything I knew, everything I believed in, crumbled in an instant. I couldn't even think straight, and the only thing I could focus on was putting the phone and everything back to where I found it. I honestly don't know what to do now. I haven't been able to eat or sleep, and I keep feeling like I need to take action. But I'm so just clueless. I mean, come on, what do I do? I haven't told anyone about this, really. I'm just hoping this post will get someone who has gone through something similar to help me. Update number 1. Hey guys, thank you so much for your responses. I honestly did not expect my post to go viral in just a few days. So thank you. I've read all the comments and I think I want to respond to some of them. I'll admit that I have a confidence issue. I've been struggling with low self-esteem ever since middle school. I'm aware that I'm a people pleaser and I'm actively working on it. I don't need you to understand, but please, be aware that this could be a lot harder for some people than others. I'd be also extremely difficult to set some boundaries. Oh, well, with people who are supposed to be your family, you're sort of expected to always love them unconditionally, and I guess I took the assignment too seriously. In the last few days, I've replayed countless moments in my head, searching for signs that I might have missed. I thought back to the times Claire's comments had seemed particularly sharp. There was that time at a family gathering when she had whispered something to my husband, and they both laughed, glancing my way. At the time, I had brushed it off, convincing myself it was nothing, and I just remembered the times my husband had been unusually secretive about his phone. The way that he would quickly change the subject whenever I asked about it to this day. There were late-night business calls that seemed to go on forever, and business trips that came up unexpectedly. Then there was Claire's relentless suggestions that I wasn't good enough for my husband. I had thought that she was just being her usual critical self, but now it was clear that she had been chipping away at my confidence, trying to make me doubt myself and my self-worth. I felt so humiliated. I mean, how could I have been so blind? How did I not see what was happening right in front of me? But I understood now that this was not my fault. I'd loved and trusted them both, and they had exploited that trust. I realized that moving forward would not be easy, but that's what I'm going to have to do nevertheless. I've decided to keep this a secret. Honestly, I don't know how many people I can trust right now. I just wanted to tell my maid of honor about everything before realizing that she was friends with my husband before becoming my best friend. I've realized now that I'm too dependent on him. My friends are his friends, but his friends are not mine. I remember having a social circle of my own before he came around, and he could always find a reason to be upset with him. Gradually, the friendship turned cold. The people who used to be my closest friends weren't present at my wedding. We haven't even talked for years, and that really broke my heart. I've lost too many people and things to this marriage, and I wasn't even aware of it. The hardest part is that my bridal party doesn't even seem to be too concerned about Claire. They kept telling me to brush it off because they themselves don't want to be involved in any drama. This is probably another sign that they're more my husband's friend than mine. Some guest from the wedding did contact me and ask if anything was wrong. They meant if Claire and I were having trouble, but I decided just to brush it off. Not because I want to let it go, I just don't have people in my corner to feel comfortable fighting with right now. Anyways, I'm still not sure what I'm going to do. But I'm visiting my parent-in-laws tomorrow to drop off some of these directions from my workshop that they really liked. They're nice people. We're not very close, but they've been mostly kind towards me. I'll be alone with them for an hour or so. I'm thinking about trying to get some information out of them if I can. Any suggestions here? How should I phrase myself so that they won't find out that I found out about their son's affair? I don't even know if they knew about it. This is all such a huge mess. Update number 2. Hey, it's me again. I was planning to write an update after getting back from my in-laws, but things just kept happening. I blinked and it was already 3 weeks. Sorry for that, and thank you for all the messages. I'm well and alive. But I'm in a much bigger mess than I was. See, the good news is I think I have a direction of where to go from here. So that day, I went straight to my parent-in-laws, hoping to find some clues to better understand what's going on. At first, they weren't very welcoming. They were still polite, but something felt sort of cold. I'm not sure. I hadn't visited their home in a few months already, so I was wondering if something happened during those few months that I didn't even know about. They were giving me a lot of passive-aggressive attitudes, but nothing could be discussed directly, so I couldn't even clear it up. After about 20 minutes of awkward chit-chats, something finally came up. They told me that their son had been visiting them with bruises, claiming that we've been fighting. Yeah, my husband's been telling his parents that I was the one hitting him. Can you believe it? Then I thought back about the text messages. I saw my husband's spare phone, and he was planning this all along. I was fuming inside, but I tried to stay as calm as I possibly could. All I told my in-laws was that I would never do anything to hurt them like that. Ever. But we were indeed having some problems, and we would figure it out between ourselves. I asked them to not talk to him about it just so that we could work this out as a couple. They didn't like the look that they trusted me. I guess it makes sense. I knew they would not believe me. They were just a part of his plan to paint me as an abusive wife. But I guess I was glad that they were indeed the kind-hearted people I thought they were, and there's a chance that they would not approve of their son's affair if they knew the truth. On my way home, I was livid, to say the least. I decided to take revenge, but I needed time to figure out on what to do. My honeymoon is supposed to happen in 2 weeks' time. I'm not quite comfortable sharing the location and other details here, but all in all, it's a beautiful island that's home to lovely cottages and people. The drawbacks is the flights there. At this time around, it's really hard to book, and we had to buy our tickets 5 months in advance just to make sure we had decent seating, without paying an obnoxious high price for it. My husband, also terrible sickness at the sea, so getting a ferry is a huge no for him. Despite everything, I'm still planning on going on our honeymoon. I can't find a good reason to bail, and I don't want to reveal to him what I found out just yet. It's not easy, but I feel like he's been plotting against me. I need to figure out what exactly his plans are before taking action, so I waited for him to fall asleep one night and went through my husband's secret phone again. Just as expected, I found out that Claire, ever the opportunist, insisted on secretly coming along with us to the honeymoon trip. It sounded to me like she was just getting more and more tired of being the mistress. That really explains why she had the balls to wear red to the wedding. She's ready to go public, and my husband is not. He kept begging her to wait, but I knew Claire. I know Claire better than he does. She's going to demand more and more from him, poor guy, especially when she feels that I still have the position that she wants. She feels like going on the honeymoon trip secretly is a compromise that both my husband and her have to accept to make things work. She asked him to get her flight tickets and he refused to because it's extremely expensive to book so close to the date. So she'll have to travel to another destination on a cheaper flight, take a bus, and then take the ferry. She's livid that my husband would not just buy her the ticket outright. They're obviously having issues between them, so this is an opportunity to use that against them. Guys, any suggestions here? I have some ideas of what I'm going to do, but I do want to hear from everyone and decide on the best course of action. Thank you for being here for me. I can't believe I found more genuine friends by posting a random piece of whiny text on the internet than I've ever done in real life. Update number 3. Hey guys, I'm here for an update. So, many things have unfolded in the past few months. I kept meaning to write an update, but then I kept having to postpone it. So here's a quick little rundown before I have to go back to my crazy mess of a life. A lot's happened on the honeymoon trip, so I pretended to schedule a hangout with a local friend. Yeah, I have so many friends, right? Nope, it was a fake friend. I have no such friend. I was just trying to create an opportunity for my husband and Claire to go meet each other. I told my husband to go to the beach, enjoy a few hours of alone time, knowing for sure Claire would be too impatient to pass on that opportunity. I know she's already upset about being the mistress, so I'm almost certain that she's going to use the chance to assert her power over him. She asked to go on the honeymoon trip with us for a reason, right? I'm going to give her everything she needs to do whatever she wants and then use that against her. So, I went through my husband's phone again and found out where they were staying. Knowing Claire was letting my husband pay for everything, it's probably Claire's favorite part about their illicit affair, which happens, to explain a lot. I think back about it all the time. Claire's down on my career, making comments about how much money my husband makes, and it turns out they all came from her jealousy. I'm certain that she's with my husband partly because he can pay for her, so I plan to take that away as well. I stole all of his credit cards and maxed them out, booking the most expensive accommodations, dining out to the finest restaurants while paying for everyone there, and buying whatever caught my eye. Then I used the card to buy a flight ticket back home. The price was obviously through the roof, and then I put all of his credit cards back into place. I did this all within 3 hours. My husband was clearly busy with something else because he didn't even check his banking notification until I've already left the island. He was texting and calling like crazy, but my phone was already on airplane mode. I went back home, turned off my phone, and practically ignored everyone who was curious about what went down on the honeymoon. Nobody knew that I brought back my husband, his cheating phone with me, which was pictures of their interactions. I saved every piece of evidence I could get my hands on there. We're stuck on that island for weeks, By the time they finally got back home, I had everything I needed. And from what I found out later, they finally managed to ask my in-laws to buy tickets. They were very expensive, and they had to hunt down people who had already booked the tickets but decided not to use them. It's a hassle, to say the least, and I bet my husband is livid that he has to pay for Claire's flight ticket even when she doesn't have seasickness. But that's their problem now. I had already moved out of the house, and he and I used to share it. All in all, I was ready to start a new life. But of course, I knew that we had to deal with a lot of things before I could get to that point. Some of you have advised me to reconnect with my old friends, and I think that's a great idea. I'd also like to gain back what I've lost in the painful marriage. So I reached out to one of my friends, Sarah, who used to be my best friend from college. I sent her a long message, at the risk of oversharing, hoping that she could somehow find it in her heart to let the past go and welcome me into her life again. Unexpectedly, her response was really heartwarming. She said she missed me, and we went to a coffee shop to catch up on a few things. And she tells me that one of the reasons why she found it hard to reach out to me was because my husband was making moves on her. She tried to tell me, but I was too distant and deeply in love for her to even say a word. I apologized to her for having neglected her as a friend. And she apologized for not having been there for me, and we were in tears by the end of that afternoon. I'm just glad at least I have someone in my corner now. I'll keep you all updated on what happens next. Thank you again for being here for me. Update number 4. So, long story short, I got divorced, baby. Yep, I got divorced and it's what I wanted. So let me resume where we left off in the last update. So my friend Sarah, she got married earlier this year, and it turns out that her husband's pretty well-known divorce lawyer. He even had a handful of experience dealing with abusive relationships when Sarah offered to help me, sort things out with my hubby. I was really grateful. I couldn't believe that after all these years, she was still in the same caring Sarah. Oh, wow. Her husband's wonderful too. He was attentive and extremely sharp, suggesting all the best actions to take without charging me a dime. Of course, I was thinking of other ways to thank them later, and I just need to focus on my case right now. I filed for divorce and sued both of my ex and stepsister for the affair, watching me and false allegations, and Sarah's husband will be representing me as he was on the case since the day one. I'm feeling very confident. With all the evidence that I have, there is no way that they would deny it. My only concern is my in-laws. They were really shocked when they found out about the news. They called me up and I didn't answer. They sent me a long, tearful text. They asked me if things I said were true, saying they could not believe me. They were, of course, still on their son's side, and my parent-in-laws testified on his behalf at first, accusing me of being an abusive wife, but I could hear the way their voices quivered, as if they weren't even sure about it anymore. Right after my lawyer would expose my ex text messages that planned out the whole false allegation. My mother-in-law fainted during court. We had to postpone everything to take her to the hospital, and it was so painful to see how good people were suffering because of my ex's actions. However, in the end, despite all the troubles, the court's decision was in my favor. I got the divorce and what I wanted, along with the settlement of $120,000. So, fast forward to now. I've used the settlement money to open my eyes of my own agency, offering high-quality office designs for big companies, and I'm making twice as much as I used to. And I'm glad I didn't listen to my stepsister, who clearly didn't have any idea what she was talking about. Speaking of her, it seems like Claire and my ex aren't doing very good either. Last I heard, they broke up because she spent so much of his money. My ex, she was just trying to get me back at some point, sending me teary text about how much he regretted his mistake, as if he didn't come up with a whole plan to frame me as an abusive wife, before stealing our future child away from me. But of course, I didn't buy his sob story. And that's really it, guys. Thank you so much for being a part of this.